Hi, I'm Sandra Ingerman. Welcome to the Shamans Cave.
And I'm Renee Baribeau. Welcome to the Shamans Cave. And we are really excited to bring to you a really, really important topic that is like a hold on to your hat kind of topic. Don't you think, Sandra?
I think so. We're going to actually try to talk about faith in this short period of time. And I know that faith means a lot of different things to a lot of you. And we're basically talking about faith. I'm talking about faith in a higher power, the spirits, in nature. I believe that we don't see nature as a creative force, and we really have to. Earth, air, water, fire are creating our lives for us every minute. So to me, they're creator gods. And so when I talk about faith, it's having faith in myself, it's having faith in the spirits, it's having faith in God, and it's having faith in the elements. And what that means to me is that there's a higher intelligence that knows the chaos that needs to be created so that myself and others can grow into a new consciousness.
Absolutely. And for me, until I met the wind spirits, I'd have to say that I had, the kind of faith that like when I got what I wanted, I was good. And when I didn't get what I wanted, the faith went out the window. And I know that because for years I would like go to psychic after psychic and healer after healer looking for answers. And once I really understood that the wind had my back and the wind was filling the sails, all of that ceased. And now it's like when I'm in doubt, I'll go outside and get the kiss of wind on my cheek and say, oh, okay, whether it may or may not be the way that I'm thinking it should be, but it's okay.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the point, is that most of our lives are not what we think they should be at this particular time. And so I think the term that I'm hearing more and more is the whiplash effect. I don't know if you've heard that one, Renee, of it's like you hear a news story that it looks like the COVID's over and we're all going to get on with our lives by next year, and then boom, there's a news story that all the hospital beds are filled up in certain states and that the COVID will probably be with us for blah, blah, blah. And so that's kind of the whiplash effect. And I'm really familiar with the whiplash effect because I've had this disorder for 6.5 years. And so where all of you are having the whiplash effect in a year, I've been having the whiplash effect for 6.5 years. Oh my God, I'm recovering, I'm cured. And then all of a sudden I'm back in deeper than I was before. And then, oh my God, I'm recovering, I'm cured. And then I'm back in deeper than I was before. So I understand that whiplash effect, and I understand the restlessness that it brings to people, the frustration it brings to people, and we start to lose our sense of faith and hope. And we start to forget who to believe in and who to trust in right now, because it seems like everything going on is so massive. Who do you trust? Who do you put your faith in?
I put my faith in the wind. And I say that really from a deep place of reverence and responsibility, because that what you're calling the whiplash effect is, I don't know if I just kind of had this experience of when you're aligned to nature, there's no surprises in the newspaper and you know this, there's no surprises on the radio. Like, for example, when 9/11 hit, there was like no doubt in my mind that we didn't know that this was going to happen. And sure enough, how many years later? 20?
Right.
Now 60 Minutes is having, or one of the news shows is having a show on it this week about, well, yeah, we did know it was going to happen, but we couldn't stop it. And it wasn't even a second doubt in my mind that, wow, we knew this. And so when you start to really tune in, it's those whiplashes are the false information we get when we get out of sync with our nature. And I know that, like, because Sandra, and I know I've been sitting here with you for 3 years, and I've watched, like, what you always tend to do, from what I've noticed, is that you then retreat, find your connection back with nature, and find that hope and restoration again. And I've watched it, and I've used it as my own. Yes, this is possible to have a faith that's so strong that I can find the value in whatever the situation is going on around me. And I witness that with you, and I have ultimate respect for watching you walk through this. You know, and sometimes we laugh at each other, like, because we're a lot the same in terms of how hard we both work, and we're unrelenting in our. I mean, we're probably two of the hardest working teachers out there. I would just say, don't you agree?
Absolutely.
Morning, noon, and night, and it's just who we are. So, and that's our faith that we're going to make a difference on this journey, I trust.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've started to do recently is I realized, and I'm sharing this with all of you who might feel that you end up in a similar situation to me, when things weren't changing and I was still in that whiplash effect, I disconnected from spirit. I disconnected from God. I didn't think I disconnected from nature, but I did. And I can see that now, because at the time, everything outside my house looked brown, and it wasn't. It was me. I was dying inside, so everything outside looked like that. And now I can't believe how green it was. Like, where was I? Where was I? Everything is so green. And so I'm doing this meditation now where I visualize a column, a vortex, a column of light, and I step into that column, and I'm completely connected, and I'm a strong link between the earth and the spirits. And I give up while I'm standing in that vortex. I give up to nature and to the creative forces of the universe and the helping spirits all my illness, knowing that they can transmute it. And I just do that throughout the day. And so I'm finding that it was a very important part of my process. And I'm talking about this because this is where the collective is right now, or a lot of people are going to be going, is that when I felt I had done everything that I could and nothing was changing, I lost faith in everything. And I think that was the hardest part of my journey, because then you really feel alone.
You know, and I think that every mystic and every person who's carried a powerful message like you do, or the wind work, or that crisis of faith is one of the components of being. And they talk about it in the Christ story about, Christ going out to the desert for 30 days. And there's nothing more dry or harsh than going to the desert for 30 days. And I think that that's the story of our lives, that we forget that there's a desert in all of us, that the desert isn't something separate over there, that we are all the Christed one in a way. And I've been talking a lot about this lately, about that we have an inherent right to our magic. And
like
that was taken away from us maybe 14,000 years ago, when we were told to come inside, sit down in a temple, and we're going to have this intermediary now explain to you what nature's saying. And so we lost our way from that. And so I think what our faith is calling us back to is to remember that we are connected. And what bigger way to know, like when you're on your knees begging for some kind of reprieve, is the best time to say, like, all right, I surrender to the earth. I surrender to the sky. We're all revolving in this cosmic mess together at this moment. How do we find our way through?
Yeah. And I think that that's part of the point, is that, I write in all my books, the only way out is through. But people aren't willing to go through right now. They want to stop the process. Okay, I've had enough. And I just want to get on with my life. And I understand it. My husband and I are starting to move in that direction ourselves too. But we have to understand the bigger picture. And when Renee, when you talked about the desert and the harshness of the desert, there's also anybody who's taken a walk in the harshest parts of the desert. There's always some little tiny flower that God knows where they get moisture from. But there's always that one tiny flower that found its way through the sand, And what I found in my time, my journey of what I've been going through, is that the tiny flowers are everywhere in my landscape. The help that's come through, the omens, the messages are beyond exquisite. So it's like, it's almost like the exponential part of the suffering and the exponential part of the learning comes together and merges in an alchemical way where it sounds crazy, but if you're actually a conscious being, you go, oh my God, that was one of the most powerful, beautiful times of my life. And I think that there are people who are starting to get that at this time. They've returned to nature. A lot of people have returned to nature. A lot of people have literally returned to nature, being nomads. And people are starting back their spiritual practices. They're looking at how they can make a difference. And but what I think is really missing is the faith that if I know the pandemic isn't going to go on for another 100 years, but if we're in a 100-year cycle of something, we have to have the faith that we're in the river of life, and that flow is bringing us to a beautiful place, reconnecting to source.
Absolutely, because lately I've been thinking a lot about that, about how everyone's talking about, well, we're moving to this oneness experience. And I'm thinking, like, boy, if this is the road to oneness, we're on a bumpy ride. And you just can't. I suppose we bump ourselves far enough, we're going to meet at the bottom of the circle, but it's kind of hard to think about. This is like we've talked about this before, is that it has to decay. And that means everything. It's not like you get to pick and choose what's going to decay in your life, because it's gonna decay, and what's going to form our new seeds, and those new seeds are going to grow into something that I don't even think that with our limited capacity from here, we can even imagine. Because lately I've been thinking about how our faith only includes the things we want to include in our faith.
Right.
But I was realizing that artificial intelligence must have a faith of its own. Like, because lately I've noticed something, like I'll be thinking about curtains, just use curtains.
Right.
I haven't looked for them. I haven't shopped for them or anything. And yet they show up on my Facebook wall. Now, I could either be like a conspiracy idea that, okay, somebody's reading the chip in my brain and they're already projecting it out to Facebook, or that consciousness has evolved to such a place that it's such a delicate balance that the mere thought of curtain is going to bring it up into the field. And just imagine if we could channel this to good. This is the transmutation at its ultimate. We channel it into good, and we start putting those good positive thoughts out there, that they're going to be reflected back to us ad infinitum, and to create, because everything we create is creating and creating and creating. That what are we building upon?
Well, I have a story to go with what you just said, Renee, and I don't think anybody has heard this story. So I was getting crowns in my teeth back in the 80s, and my dentist gave me nitrous oxide. And I had stopped doing all plant spirit medicine when I was in my 30s because my nervous system couldn't handle it. And so the spirits, they were like, oh my God, we haven't had this chance. Here
she is.
They were like, I don't know how long this crown took, but it was like I could write books. So anyway, I had this really powerful experience where the spirits took me up to the layer between illusion and reality. And they said that right now, human consciousness is living in the illusion that they have found reality. But it's just an illusion. Because when you find reality, when you actually get to that higher boundary and you cross that boundary, curtain, it doesn't even take a millionth of a second. It's too long for it to manifest. So they said, can you imagine the chaos, the trouble, because we haven't learned how to discipline our thoughts. And so it's like, God, I want to hit that person over the head, and it's done. Right. It's just manifested. It's instantaneous. In the universe, creation is instantaneous. And so the spirits were trying to explain to me that human beings have to stay in the territory of illusion, thinking that they keep getting closer to reality, because it's too dangerous for us, because it would be instant manifestation everywhere, instant. A second would be too long, way too long. And so I've had that since the 80s to think about that, because I love to create, And what do we have to do as a culture to not be so selfish that what all of our intentions is always about me, And I think that that's really kind of the first step, is realizing that every single thought and every single word that comes out of us is energy, and it goes into the energetic field and it manifests. And that's why we're where we are right now. So we need to take a step back and look at how we need to grow before we need to look at how we can manifest.
Exactly. Yeah, manifesting. I mean, I learned really early about manifesting and seeing when I was, really more broken. I don't know if we ever are totally unbroken, but, where it was self for self, and still it's really confusing when even as you grow to determine what's for self. Like, even when sometimes we think we're sending prayers over to heal somebody else in another country, it's still for the self. Like, I'm going to feel better if I send you prayers, or, what is it too that can you really become the rain? When you become the rain, we're not as 100% certain that we know what the ideal outcome is.
Right. Yeah. And, again, another metaphorical story around that. When Santa Fe went into a really terrible drought, which we're still in the 90s, and every day I've accepted I'm a whole different person from where I was then, but oh my God, I was ranting and raging, because our trees, and Isis came to me one day in the journey and she said, we're just sick of this. Just stop whining. Stop whining about the rain. You're always looking for the rain coming down from above. But Santa Fe has more water under it than you can possibly imagine. And I found out that later on that that's actually true. And the metaphor that I'm trying to bring into this is we're always looking for out there. We're always looking to the skies, for something to come down and instantly manifest. But we forget about our inner landscape, that our inner landscape has rain, our inner landscape has everything. And so what happens if we nurture what's in our inner landscape? How would our outer landscape change? And what would happen if we had the faith inside of us that if we do our spiritual work, like the ancient ones have talked about for tens of thousands of years, that there will be some kind of change on the planet. We don't know what it is, but there will be a new rebirth in the way that creation wants it, not the way our ego wants it. And that takes faith.
A lot of faith. There's ways of developing your faith if you're like struggling right now. Sandra's offering a new course over at the Shift Network that's just beginning. And we're doing a wind work basic course in October. And I say that because faith is a muscle that's practiced. It's not, how like when you haven't exercised in months, those muscles get a little bit flabby, a little weak, takes a little extra effort. And faith works like that too. It's like you have to practice your faith. So when it's really dark, the faith kicks in. And so I really just want to give a shout out for the course you're starting and, the wind work, because we don't do that often, but we are here because we are teachers and we take people deeper in our workshops.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when I lost a little bit of faith, I'm really working on, as soon as I feel losing any kind of faith, doing something to correct it. Even though grief is part of a natural process, I hold that space too. But the other day I took the amazing wind whistle that Renee gave me as a gift. And I went out and I just used it as my tool for that day for faith, of talking to the spirits, blowing the whistle and saying, I believe in you. I believe in you and I trust in you. And I have bubbles in my living room, little bubbles. I get the wedding ones, the ones you put out at weddings. And I do the same thing. I go out and I blow bubbles into the wind. I talk to the elements. And I got a very interesting message just yesterday, which I haven't posted anywhere yet, but we're so busy taking care of the land, where everything is. We want to be caretakers for the land. But I got yesterday that if you have been caretaking the land, why don't you stop and let the land heal you right now?
I could use that.
Yeah, so we have, if we don't lose faith completely, we have all these tools, we have these spirits, we have the elements, we have nature that's always holding us all the time and waiting for us to reconnect. They never disconnect from us. They can't. That's not a natural thing to do. We do what's unnatural. We disconnect. And what we need to do is we need to move back into a nature's process and reconnect to ourselves, reconnect to nature, reconnect to the spirits and any divine beings that you believe in. If we all do that right now, some of the divisions, some of the chaos will just get quiet while we all do our work of prayer.
I like that. So our suggestion for you this week is to find any of the ways that you are disconnected and use your tools like the wind whistle or your rattle or your drum and reignite that connection, and you'll find out most likely that spirit didn't move, you moved. And can you take that long step back sometimes to just find a little bit of peace and harmony in the moment?
Yeah, and Renee brought up a really good place to stop. I just want to add one thing. A very simple thing to just try every day is just light a candle for a second, because candle reminds us of spirit. And it might not make sense to your ego, but symbols speak to our unconscious. So if you light a candle for even just a few seconds every day, it will remind you of the power of spirit, and your faith will start to return.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you, everyone, and follow us over at shamanstv.com. If you sign up to get our mailing list, you'll find out when the shows drop on YouTube and Buzzsprout and Apple, all those places. And we really appreciate you sharing the show. It keeps growing, and it makes our heart sings to be here with you. So have an awesome week.
Yeah, I love talking about our show with people, and I hope that you subscribe. You subscribe, and that you tell other people. And thank you to all of you who do subscribe and give us so much love. We're getting so much love for what we're doing, and so we're in deep gratitude for you. And thank you for being part of our circle.